Welcome back to Spooky Happy Hour. I'm your host, Bree, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by a community herbalist among many talents and roles. Welcome, Lucia Hawkins of Meraki Farmacy.
Thanks, Bree.
Yeah,
I've never been
thanks
on
so much
a
for being here.
spooky happy hour before.
There's a first time for everything.
Yeah.
I've never had anybody with your talents specifically on the
Really?
podcast in 4 seasons. So it's a first for both of us.
Yay. Oh, thank you. There's so
I'm
much
so excited you're
intersection.
here.
There's so much overlap. I mean, there really is something for everyone.
I know. And I'm so really, first off, I just want to say to everybody who's going to be watching or listening, I'm going to try to keep it under an hour, but I know that you and I are going to have follow-up chats in the future that I know everyone else is going to want to hear too. I would need a whole other podcast episode just to talk about the long list of accomplishments, awards, certifications, and everything that you bring to the table. So I do want to put that out there as a disclaimer of hey, there's definitely going to be more of Lucia because you'll see why when we get into it.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you very much.
I literally knew the moment that I met you that you were just a special human. You have a really great vibe. Your aura is very welcoming and you just light up when you talk about your passions. And it's so refreshing. And I can't wait for everybody else to see what I've already seen today in our podcast because I know that you'll just rock their socks off.
Folks, if I am speechless, that says a lot. Thank you. Right back at you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And second off, happy 10-year anniversary to Meraki Farmacy. That's cool as shit.
I cannot believe it's year 10. What is 9 in numerology? Is 9 culmination, completion, kind of?
Almost, because I think 10 is really 10 I think is what really gets there, and then you go off onto a different journey after that.
Feeling that. Yeah.
More of the mastery type era is after that.
Okay. All right. Let's see what happens this year. So one cool thing about being I'm just going to jump right into this since some people are listening already. So the thing with community herbalism or any community service, mission-driven profession is we are often working outside of the system. So on a somewhat regular basis, I will get some feedback from someone of hey, I visit your website, I follow you on social media. I really appreciate your work. I would love to do what you're doing, but I have a job that gives me benefits and a regular paycheck and insurance, and I got a mortgage and I got kids and I can't do what you do. And I say, thank you. There's another point here that we have to keep in mind, folks, is we can romanticize what people do. We can put people on a pedestal. We can be wow, that's so great. And kind of hold these people over here oh, Lou is helping save the world. I don't have to do anything. Lou's taking care of it. But with this kind of work, and especially farming, organic, regenerative, sustainable agriculture, a lot of the healing arts, a lot of the community care stuff, we are all outside of that system. We don't have the regular paycheck. We don't have the insurance. We don't have all of those benefits. And we are dedicated to our mission. And we are literally banking on the community to support our work so that we can continue it. We need community engagement, which, yes, includes sharing on social media, but it's showing up to the events. It's leaving reviews. Why are people, will take the time to leave a 1-star review at a restaurant when the restaurant is restauranting and things normal things are happening, but people won't take that time to say, hey, these people are doing really important work. Here's how I'm benefiting from it. Here's how I'm supporting it. You can mention that at your dinner parties and when you're out with the gals and at the nail salon. We really need that level of community engagement and tangible support in order to keep doing what we're doing.
Well,
And that
absolutely.
is
Like your agreement as that steward of conservation is like doing all of the honoring, right? Like you honor Mother Earth because like she gives us everything that we need and like you use it as this way of life and like you don't necessarily have to use it as a way of life, but you do have to like incorporate it into your life somehow so that you can give back to your community and point people in the right direction to learn how to do it for themselves too. So it's like
right.
what led your heart down this path specifically?
Yeah. Oh, great question. So I always knew that I wanted, desired to be as close to nature, to Mother Earth, to the plants and the animals and the outside. I just kind of like arrived in this body this time with that prior knowledge. Thank you. So glad that we like made that part of the contract. Because it's really important. My grandfather, I didn't know my dad's dad. He died when my dad was still in high school, but my mom's father, you will, if you follow on social media, you'll hear all sorts of vignettes and poetry about him. But my pop said something to me when I was a little kid. He said, something really special happens when you put your hands into the soil. I was like, yeah, I know. But I did not take a linear path to being a farmer or anything like that. I was interested in a lot of things, but eventually get myself onto some land to love, not land that I own or anything like that. I do believe that stewardship is caring for place and space, regardless of concepts of ownership. I also know the desire to own land so that all that labor is yours and a sense of security. But I want to encourage people to steward any and all places and spaces because any and all places and spaces need our deep, intimate respect and reciprocity. Anyway, so I'm in Vermont and I'm farming and I'm homesteading and I have this incredible, beautiful garden in the most like perfect site, a south facing slope, and there's mountains to the east, and there's a bunch of acres that are in protected use, and it's Vermont, and Vermont's, I believe, still in 2025, their biggest industry is still organic dairy farming. There's not billboards in Vermont. It is absolutely agriculturally centered communities throughout the state. So I had everything right there. So I sowed some seeds, and it was really easy to witness the growth and expansion of happy, healthy plants. And the cool thing about when you are supporting the life of others is you get to learn a bunch of stuff that you can never learn in a classroom. I'm a trained biologist. I went to school for stuff, but the things that I learned by actually doing it and by actually being with plants, and even prior to being on land, right? Like growing things out of buckets. It is a whole entire world of, yes, enchantment and magic and wonder, but the direct experience of abundance, of interconnection, interdependence. It's like the best carrot you can ever have is one that you grew, even if it's in a bucket. And very quickly, I know I can say this to our viewers here. Plants communicate in a bunch of different ways, right? Like that's what flowers are. That's what taste and smell are. That's plants' way of communicating to us. We've co-evolved with plants over, hundreds of thousands of years. I was awakened to plant communication on a different level, outside of our like 5 basic senses. So I can feel hawks before I see them. I can hear plants. I haven't had a plant share their song with me yet, which might be just like more de-enculturation and decolonizing work that I have to do. But I'm hearing the plants communicate while I'm using sustainable regenerative ag practices like intercropping. So instead of just growing the same crop across the whole farm or acres and acres and acres, right? You have different species and different varieties and all these things. And in that abundance, and then so hearing the plants, seeing all of this, and then also being really aware through personal research and my studies, I'm aware that all of these products that are touted as self-care are filled with poison and toxins. At this point, 10 years ago, we're aware of pesticide use and what chemical ag is doing to completely erode the health of our soils and therefore decreasing nutrient content of food, and therefore is responsible for chronic illness in this nation. And so I'm like, what can I do other than just grow food for me and my husband at the time and our chickens and our dogs, maybe share with neighbors? I want to make more of a difference. I want to make bigger impact. I want to offer something to the world that is tangible and that is decreasing violence, decreasing risk and exposure to harm, and increasing vitality and connection. So I started making soap and deodorant and toothpaste, because these are the things that just about every person uses just about every day for their entire life. Right. And if people are if the stuff we're eating and drinking and using to clean our house and all this stuff is literally killing us, let me just like stake a flag in the earth to be like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
This is absolutely unacceptable. And hey, friends, and the people I'm already in relationships with, here's some soap, toothpaste, and deodorant that is going to protect you.
And I think everybody's looking for that answer, right? Everyone's looking for the answer. Well, then what do I do? If this is everywhere and if this is all that's what's happening, is like, what do I do? I also think that a lot of people need some type of personal effect or personal connection to something, either if they're negatively affected by it, positively affected by it, whatever, to pursue their own stuff. So it's like, I would like to practice more like cultural rites and rituals in my own spiritual practice, and like sometimes I don't know where to start. So like specifically in terms of like herbalism, this will be like my own interest of like how this impacts me and how I connect to it. Like I have like PA Dutch and like Germanic like heritage, and I know that you do. So it's like I would love to hear something about how, one, you connect to that, and how, two, maybe other people who have like similar, you know, backgrounds can connect to their ancestral knowledge that they already have.
Yes.
They just don't know it, right?
Yes. So that's the thing, right? So, and for folks who want to deepen their intimacy with all sorts of relationships, because again, we have co-evolved with plants. They're not just food, they're clothing, they're allies, they're teachers, materials for constructing your house. I mean, we are besties, and it's only taken a couple of generations for rituals and traditions to be disrupted, right? And that's a direct result of imperialism and these larger cultural paradigms. And so the argument, a really great argument for connecting through our own ancestry, is it's out of respect to other people, right? And other people's cultures, and which we should learn about and be really inspired by, but we never want to appropriate from other people's cultures, especially when we're entering through like a deeply spiritual, sacred thing, right? Why would we bring in any disrespect or violence into those practices? Right? I spent a lot of time talking with people about like, you as white people, as people who are descendants of Pennsylvania Dutch, who are great stewards and you know, but they did settle into Pennsylvania on land that wasn't theirs. And yes, they integrated and made deep, intimate relationships with the Lenape people and all of that. And also settlerism is something that we must acknowledge. When we use other people's closed practices, we're disrespecting our family, because we've been disconnected from our own lineages and traditions, right? So it's a lot of repair work by focusing on that. And there's, you know, the ethical and bigger social cultural implications, but there's an ease of access there because we carry it. We carry it in our bones. So I don't want to be like, work smarter, not harder, but like, hello, duh, like it's there waiting for you.
And we should, you know, distinguish too, like there are so many more closed practices that I don't think that people understand are closed. And there are avenues, like if you like say resonate with something, right? Like if someone invites you to their practice, or someone allows you with permission to use a certain thing that they may do, a small part of their culture and heritage, like, yes, like you need that permission to be able to kind of like access that. And if you're not getting it, then don't do it.
Right. And what an honor to be invited in. That's huge. That means you're trusted. That means something you're doing is already emulating respect It's all about respect, reciprocity, responsibility. Like
Love
I get in arguments with people, which I'm fine with. I bring it. White people stop burning white sage. And when I see other providers at events and stuff, and they're like all perfect, they've all been like made by a machine and purchased from a big warehouse. And it's like, that's not your plant.
Yeah.
That's not your plant. You're by telling ourselves that we're participating in some like deeply beautiful, spiritually resonant ascension practice or whatever the shit. The reality is we're when we do that, we are participating and upholding systems of harm and violence. And you're also contributing to making this plant at risk for extinction. It's just
right. And the people who use it in their closed practices that it is theirs, they can't access the very thing that they need. That's part of themselves when we take it.
And in the context of our collective history on Turtle Island, it's just like, bro, sis, like what are you doing? So there are tons of other options that right. I bet are going to feel so beautiful for people. I think sometimes people think when it comes to like ancestral stuff, like, oh, well, I don't know my grandparents, or we tend to think of like a specific person, but we can kind of be broader than that. So like more archetypal, or do you know what
I think that's my challenge, right? Like there's so many different, like people think blended families are something of new. That's entirely bullshit. We've always been blended families of several different lineages of people from hundreds and hundreds of years, right? We may not connect with them in terms of like a specific role, or you might hear that specific role's name and you think a certain thing, but it's really not ever like how it really is. So like for me, I'm like, oh yeah, like Pennsylvania Dutch, German. What the fuck does that mean for me?
Yeah. Yes. And that's also a thing, right? Because at the end of the day, we're Americans, and we are like, if you might be of Irish descent or something, but like, you're not Irish. Okay. You're not on the land. You don't speak the language, right? Like we're American. And I like to ponder what being American means, especially these days. So, because like, especially in herbal practice, right? There's thousands of years of standing tradition, and it is medical and it is preventative and it's totally legit. 80% of the world still practices herbal, folk, traditional medical care. And every culture has some, right? Every culture has their form of that. And here we are in America with like a Western herbalism, just like a lot of things in our culture, right? Where it's a blend, and it's not like cherry picking, like the cute. We're not culturally appropriating. We are blending. We are integrating. We have a great opportunity, I think, to reflect upon what that means for us in ways that are honoring our people and our connections to our ancestral lands and our ancestral plants. Because even though we might not live there anymore, those plants, right, have been co-evolving with our people. Those are our plants. So like, I'll talk to people who, speaking to someone who was born in Japan and lives in Pennsylvania and gets all of this advice on what plants to work with and get to know. And she does. And it's not landing in her body. Like we know what plants do, but those aren't the plants for her. Mm-hmm. Maybe partially, I think, because of the cultural ancestral aspect, right? Like it would be really interesting for her to reconnect with her people's plants. And I'd be interested to see what that experience is like for her. And I stand in that, and then that moves across, different cultural groupings. Yeah. Well, also getting to know the plants that are here in Pennsylvania,
Right. Like that's kind of like how I wonder. I'm thinking to myself, like, because I did start off like my spiritual practice of like, let me buy that white sage bundle from whatever vendor that
I've done it. There's no plant quite like white sage. I know. I love her too. And with that love, I'm not going to participate in that. I know.
Absolutely. It's like over time.
We don't know what we don't know.
And that exactly, we don't know what we don't know until we know it, and then you got to do something different with it. Like if you have the knowledge, then you have to use it. Like you're dishonoring the knowledge that you have if you're not informing your practice or informing your life in some way, shape, or form. So for me, it's like, okay, I ditched it. And then the big question mark for me, and especially as a therapist, right? Like to be so culturally sensitive and to not overstep bounds and to always kind of be invited into a certain conversation about that and whatnot. It's like I tread so lightly all of the time. And then I'm like, but I want to fucking dive into something. Like, what is for me? You know, that's like kind of the bigger question. So it's like for you specifically, and like knowing, you know, your communication and your relationship with the plants, like, is there a certain sum where you're like, that's my homegirl? Like this is what I go to every time for whatever.
Sure. I mean, like specifically for smudging?
For maybe any of your practices, or even just like something to incorporate in your everyday, right? Like making your own tea. It's like what calls to you so that you can use those. Yeah, show that off, girl.
One of the simplest things that you can do for your mind, body, soul is to put some plants in a jar and cover it in nearly boiling water, depending on the plant and intended purpose, and drink it.
Mm-hmm.
I am not like a tea drinker. So I love telling people. So I thought tea was a closed practice, and that it was reserved for rich British people who were home from work at 2 PM and we're like eating us. Like I'm like, that's above my pay grade.
You're like, this is not me.
This is not my ancestral lineage at all. Like, what is tea? Like that's so. Oh, and they took it from the Chinese. Like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
But herbal infusions, right, where you have plants and water and you're drinking that every day is just such a easily assimilated source of nutrition. And especially there's no bag of plastic putting plastics into my drink. When you have loose leaf tea, you can actually receive a amount and dosage that actually does anything for you. You can schedule tea times with me where I bring even bigger jar than this of delicious beverages to any place that people want to gather, and we can talk about all these things. A little plug there. There's a little, go to my link tree. We'll travel. Of course, I will travel like up to several hours to have a tea party with folks.
That's amazing. Maybe that's what our next follow-up will be, is that like you teach me what I need to do for tea time for my home, and then we'll put it back out there, and like people can kind of get like now. Yeah, please do.
You literally just put plants in a jar and bring water to a nearly boil and pour it in there and let it steep 10 minutes, maybe a whole day. And then you strain it and you drink it.
Because there's so many things that I had got from you.
There's more to it.
Met. You know what I mean? Like at the convention, like I have your focus potion. I have the lemon one that makes my tummy feel better. Whatever that one is, I have that too. Yes, yes, I love those so much. And like, you know, I give my child some like focus potion before he goes to school, and his like stuff in the morning, like his drink in the morning, and then like, you know, he goes out the door. So it's like, and since he has ADHD, it's like I have this like pharmaceutical medication in front of me, right? And then I also have like this thing, and it's like, well, if I can still continue to use that, like when, you know, because I know a lot of people are like that. What is something that I can give my child or myself to like feel better, to like go throughout the world, right? Now, one, I think that it's imperative to say we are not meant to sustain ourselves in this current freaking society and administration with the values that we have today. Like this, the things that you want to do, it's not going to be solved by like a pill or this you know, non-additive, like whatever. It's the fact that we're overworked, completely fucking burnt out, don't know how to care for ourselves, and none of us are connected to ourselves anymore, and that's the way they want us, so that we can rely on all those external sources when there's so much more internally that we can do. So it's like, how in the world, you know, for people who are like, no, I'm just playing the game, I have to do this, I need a job, I need my mortgage, I need X, Y, and Z, where is some like one step that they can start today that will make even the smallest but most worthy difference in their lives?
Wow. Yes, ma'am. All that. Okay. That acknowledgement is really important. The other day I'm in class and we're talking about obstacles to cure. And I love Terra Silva School of Botanical Medicine. Look them up. Okay. So we're talking about obstacles to cure, and we're talking about, like having a really great intake, thorough questionnaire. So, people aren't just like Google searching or like, oh, there's an AI generated chatbot post on Facebook, and now I know what to do for my health. Nah, please don't. It is dangerous and disrespectful.
And it's your instant gratification at work, by the way.
It's, sustain the people who are working very, very hard to sustain our health. I mean, is there like a short answer to that? Like the one thing that you can do? Oh, so obstacle to cure. So we can do all this and all the things. You always are going to have some kind of multidimensional protocol, because if you're not sleeping, you're not dreaming. You are not recovering. There's very literal, physical, physiological, metabolic, subconscious, bridge to conscious things that this amazing meat sack machine cannot do when we are awake. Mm-hmm. Sleep is really important, and that rest and, regular, consistent, good enough sleep. What we eat and drink, and also everything that we are taking in, everything. Light, sound, the news, narratives, stories, myths, intentional disinformation, propaganda, everything that we take in is, our brain is like, what's important, what's not. And we are all overloaded with sensory information. Mm-hmm. Everyone's nervous system is stressed. We did not evolve in this amount of information. And so the sleep, everything that you're consuming and then digesting and processing, and your body and your spirit deciding what we're going to build our life with and what is waste and we need to get out. Our relationships, our relationship with ourselves, with our family, with our work, with the collective, with like the very, very real, absolute real, very sincere, pretty terrifying existential threats. All of that makes up our health. So is there one thing that, anyone can do at any time to improve the quality of their life? You can schedule a conversation with me and we can chat about it. I'm sorry, like I'm half kidding.
But no, it's a wonderful resource, because like you said, like sometimes they'll go to Google or something, to get that instant gratification thing. What can I do? Okay, I'm going to go do that.
Yes.
But it's intentional.
No. Yes, I would say, yeah. So if there's one thing that anyone can do at any time, it would be to stop, pause, recenter, reorient, kind of regulate the nervous system, do what you got to do, have a chat with yourself about what am I looking for? What kind of help and support and access to resources and knowledge and experience and things am I really looking for? And who around me can either connect me to that person, or who around me is doing that thing. So I am not from Central Pennsylvania. So I live in Clearfield County. And if you know, I have met there are incredible, professional, informed, talented people everywhere who work really hard to provide quality care that is extremely accessible. And they aren't necessarily state funded or through a larger organization like that, right? This is why community care is really important. This is why attending community events is really important. We met at one that wasn't very well attended, but it was really successful because we're building relationships and we're connecting into existing networks of care. That would be my advice.
Mind-blowing to just see how many people, as a therapist myself, provides telehealth services to rural communities in Colorado. That's my job. I am completely isolated from humans. This is my bedroom, my childhood bedroom, where I spent 16 years of my life.
Such a good idea. at the
And
time.
honestly, in so many different ways, right? It is. And like, thank goodness that I have this, this telehealth job and I can still impact people from 1,500 miles away. And I'm still isolated and my gifts are like centralized to what can I give through a computer sometimes. So being able to go out
Right.
to these conventions as well and see people, and it's like, I saw so many licensed professional counselors that are like, hey,
Right
I
here.
do this in my practice. You are not stuck in the same community mental health care crisis after crisis of the population that you serve. Like, there is another side to this where you can integrate all the things that you know and love and still make the same impact, or maybe even a greater one, because you're using stuff that makes more sense to you. And like, we're so disconnected to that community, right? Like, because you were asking before, like, what does it mean to be like, an American? Well, we've made it be more about individuality, and it was never supposed to be like that. We were always
Right.
about the collective. This has changed over decades and hundreds of years to be more individualistic, and it's so
Yeah.
hard to combat that now with everybody trying to promote their own
But is it?
individual stuff like that
But is
today.
it?
What
Is
do you
it
mean?
that hard, or or is this just people doubling down on a myth that they need to let go of? Because the
Oh, I
reality
think
is,
both.
a rugged individual does not exist. No one is self-made. Okay,
Mhm.
like honestly, and if you people, I encourage you to really think for yourself and reflect. And I want you to close your eyes and think about someone that you personally know who has done everything all by themselves
Right.
and is happy and successful,
Mhm.
whatever that means. Honestly, think about it. You will not come
Yeah.
up with anyone.
No,
I
because
do
I
all
think it's
my work by
twofold.
myself, but I didn't get here alone. Like, come on. Come
No, and I think
on.
it's twofold though. Like, all of us that are trying to like individually make our way and say, "Hey, this is what I want. I'm not bogged down by the 9 to 5. I'm not doing that." Like, I please, like, yes, we need more of them, and we also need
Yes.
the other people who aren't doing it to stop looking at those people and being like, "Ugh, I'm gonna go to Amazon and buy my shit from somebody else because it's gonna get here in 2 days." What are
Right.
your values? What is impacting how you communicate with people and the products that you buy? Where is that coming from? Where is your intention? Because I think that
Yes.
they see individuals, using their strengths, going out there and doing something different, promoting themselves, and then saying like, I'll pass. Why?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why. I think, I just kind of accept that some people are just sheep and that we are not going to be able to have these deep, intimate, meaningful, connective conversations and then putting that into action for the long haul with everyone. Some people are just
Right.
sheep. And I know at this point, especially going to year 10 of Meraki Pharmacy, like I don't have time to explain to anyone about why caring for each other and their own health and the environment is important. Like 10 years ago, I educated people about why we need to use an all natural deodorant and a biodegradable container. And cool. Now people don't have to have that conversation. I'm moving the line. I want
Mm-hmm.
to remind people that like all of the disconnection is really intentional, right? So we're disconnected from our bodies, we're disconnected from our ancestral traditions, which are passed down generation to generation through story and 1000% in the kitchen and
Mm-hmm.
through generally not to I'm an inclusive person 1000% and an ally, but it's usually women who are the keepers of the wisdom and what happens in the kitchen and with the earth and taking care of children and other community and family members from cradle to grave. That is who has historically and traditionally carried these things. So when I see women, particularly white women, doubling down on a false sense of security through their relationships with men and through their relationships with like shopping on Amazon and Temu and like all this stuff or and then I see some of them do like the girl boss, like creative entrepreneur thing, but like they're just replicating the system of harm. They're just replicating centering money as a status symbol and as abundance because I'm curious for people if enough people think about what really wealth is.
Mm-hmm.
And if people think about how as Americans, like we're the result of a 200-year experiment, and the rest of the world is not like us. And that's not like a judgment thing. That's not a good or bad. It's just a truth. Um, but we have our like very narrow scope of what our lives are and our culture is like here. And then we think that the rest of the world needs to fit that. The rest of the world has very, very different relationships with their elders, with their children, with shared public spaces, with what, like civic duty and responsibility is. Like, I love seeing farmers in France and farmers in England who, when their governments are like, hey, we're going to remove funding or fuck with everyone's livelihood and access to like nutrient dense food. If you can get a farmer to leave their farm, that you're onto something. And they drive all of their tractors. And in France, they bring all their manure too. And they drive through the towns, they go to the capital or the state government offices, and they park their tractors and they do not leave until the government is accountable for the decisions that they're making.
What a powerful statement.
Every single person in that country and beyond. I'm going off the rails. What were we talking about? Community needs to meet us where we're at. Yes, I think like continuing to reflect on like, how am I perpetuating systems of harm is just like an ongoing question. And it's a never ending thing. And like, we don't need perfectionism. We just need engagement and accountability.
Absolutely. And like, there's so much commercialization of spirituality, of ecology, of like returning to Mother Nature, of like all these things. And so where do you see the most damaging misconception in mainstream society that collectively most of us are like, oh yeah, that's true?
Reductionist and separatism. So I'm all about like, please be the individual that you are, because we need everyone to be who they are. And that requires a sense of self. And that requires time spent like in your body, not dissociating, which can be really challenging. And another like focus area from the pharmacy. We need people to know who they are and why they're doing what they're doing, right? I think from the Meraki Farmacy standpoint and being a steward, an educator, and a healthcare provider, I get frustrated for folks who are perpetuating the one single solution thing. And when people view plants as commodities or plants as something that is going to do something for me. So I just need to like take this capsule, or I just need to take this plant and like the hot trending plant. So whenever someone makes a TikTok or some kind of media buzz about a plant, and then if you look at the economic markets and what happens, the consumer demand from Americans affects natural ecosystems and people communities all over the globe. It is the consume. It's I just need this thing and I can just take it and I don't have to actively participate in my life or my health. We were talking in class about obstacles to cure. We can do all the things, but unless we change our relationships with our food system, with our own concepts of responsibility to ourselves and each other, it doesn't matter the tea blend. It doesn't matter the special imported plant. None of it is going to make a difference in long-standing, long-term health for individuals, families, and this country and the world.
And I hope one day, I hope one day I get to see my child, and if they choose to, right, like have a family, I want to see them being able to connect to themselves and to like all of like our line and not have to feel as much pressure to like do, go. Because
yes,
kind of segueing into like the human design, right? Like if I remember correctly, like you're a straight generator, right? Or are you a manifesting generator? I can't remember.
No, I'm a generator.
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
Where's my book where this is written down? I have a book. A book about Lou, so I can know myself
son is
better.
The same thing. Like without your developed sense of self, you would not use your go energy from yourself, your energy as a generator to impact the world the way that you are. You probably would be following in line with all the things that quote, you're supposed to do, but you have that sense of self. You know exactly what you want. And like for my kid in the future, it's like, I want you to have that like one thing or 10 things or whatever the fuck like that you like to do. And I'm going to be here to support you do all of the things. And I know that by doing that, like life still might not be like life's not going to be great to the person that does all the things like that they want to do, that if it contradicts what you should do. And without the big overall change that you're talking about, sometimes we are subject to more suffering because we're more compassionate.
Yeah. A sense of self is important. I also would like to encourage people, anarchist calisthenics. So just like how you play with your kids and help like create conditions for your kids to be who they are. I mean, these hopes and dreams you have for your kids, they're going to have that because you are intentional with your parenting. And I'm not a parent, so like, what do I know? But I've spent decades working with children and families, and parents who, you know, make themselves available and who are like, this is who my kid is. And that's amazing. And this human being is not just an extension of me. Prognosis is always positive, right? And I think parents have the hardest, coolest, undervalued job in the country. Top 5, I would say, like undervalued. Yeah.
I'm trying to encourage a little human in his own human experience where I may be teaching him something that I know in my heart to be like the truth of how he needs to also like view this world. And he's going to go out into the world and hear that's not it, bud. So it's like going to be this like constant, like kind of cognitive dissonance, but hopefully, right, that sense of self as they develop is so strong that we can take on that and combat those things.
Okay.
But if you don't know yourself, you're not going to do that.
How, like one of the most ultimate sense of securities that we can foster, develop, nurture, protect is a sense of self, right? Through experiencing things and like let the kid fall down in the playground. Let the kids like experiment with conflict resolution. Again, not giving parenting advice, but confirming that this personal and professional opinion, a strong sense of self, which is acquired, right? By being in safe enough environments to explore and experiment and fuck up and celebrate all the successes, right? And doing all of that. And then you have someone who is intact and they know who they are and they're practicing critical thinking skills. They know they have some kind of relationship with their body. And when their body is like, no, this is not okay. Or like, yes, this feels very good. And all of the different ways that the complex human we are communicates with each other, instinct, intuition, but also like, yes, logic and reason. We need it all. And when you have a strong sense, or at least an intact sense of self, in also a relationship with community, you are so much less fuckable.
Absolutely. It's, I mean, it's an empowering thing, right? Like, you don't have all the extra stuff in your brain because the answers you've already done
we all have some extra stuff and enculturation and crap, right? Like
100%.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's not like everything for every decision, for every interaction. Like, you don't have that in there, you know? Because, like, you know who you are and what you bring to the table. And a lot of times you can say, I'm not afraid to eat alone.
It's just so much easier. Why do we always have to eat with people? Like, when am I talking and when am I chewing? Like, really? I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, I'm going into like a little corner and I'm just like eating by myself.
Yeah, it's like, I'm okay being here doing my thing. And if you're over here doing your thing and it's not vibing, it's okay. I will encourage your existence. I might even give you a couple of those things that you need to do to go do the thing. As long as you're not fucking with somebody, as long as you're not hurting somebody, as long as you're not blocking some access for them to also live their truest, most authentic life, do your fucking thing, man. Live your life. It's okay.
Yes. Oh, I love this. This is like Leo Aquarius access stuff to me, right? Like, So, you know, Leo is like, yeah, you know, part of that archetypal energy of being proud of the self and radiating out your soul and your vibe and your personality and, you know, and all of it, right? And then across with Aquarius, who is like this, who I think is about waving your freak flag high so that the collective and the community can see the beacon of light and bringing our very beautiful, unique individuality into the collective to help decrease the suck and increase the rad, which is the Meraki
because
Farmacy.
Aquarius are all of like innovation, you know, like I'm a Leo moon and my son's an Aquarius sun, and we just like get along so well because I just encourage him to be him. And it's so funny. I was reading,
you're like reflecting back to each other, right? These like along this spectrum of like, dude, do you without, I mean, Aquarian, right? Like maybe not doesn't like humans, but very much into humanity and the collective and community.
He challenges me to like to mess up. He encourages me to like try something different. Like he encourages me to, I have to change. Like his like energy and his like innovative stuff, like he's my meter for when I'm not doing like well. Like if you're acting out more, bruh, that ain't on you. That's on me. What have I been doing lately? I have been in my phone more. I have been trying to write 10 podcast episodes so I can like, you know, next weekend be totally present with you. So yeah, no wonder you like maybe didn't eat like this because I was in my phone and not looking at you and talking to you at the supper table. Like there's so many things where like he forces and challenges me to be like, girl, you need to be more innovative with this parenting. And I'm going to show you how, because if you're not doing the things that I need to do in order to feel connection to you, I'm going to show you one way or the other. So
that's beautiful. Like, what a beautiful accountability dynamic.
Oh, yeah. I think like being a parent completely changed my life because I had to be accountable to someone other than me. And if it was just me, who fucking cares? That's kind of how it was before. Like, you know, like me take care of myself.
I'm good.
But like, this human
like,
experience.
Cool. I can't run on crackers.
Right. But this whole other experience of like caring about another human being, I'm like, damn, like I'm just as valuable as he is. And he sees me that way. So I also have to be accountable to myself to value myself as much as I value him and vice versa. Like homie taught me the most unconditional love that I don't think I would have ever gotten in this whole lifetime if he wasn't on the earth. Like I could cry thinking about it because I'm like, my whole life changed like when I had a kid and when like I found my human design and when I started practicing spirituality, and I'm like, damn, I've been this dope all along. Like
I have never felt that's very beautiful, and I'm like totally crying on the inside. Can your kid join us for the next podcast? I'll just like chuck that seed out there. Maybe we could do that. Or we'll just all hang out and play. That would be so fun. I've never felt more seen than my natal chart. Like getting so much story about who I am. And, you know, I have like very many planets in my first house, Sagittarius. It all makes sense now. I know, like, thank you. So I think a lot of that is like that depth of self-knowledge, but having all of these stories from people about like who I am and my worth and sure what the world is too, but like all that crap and really internalizing a lot of it because they just were like really misnaming what was a lot of stuff that was actually happening. But we know that behaviors serve functions, and unless we are paying attention to the function of a behavior, people come up with all sorts of shit about why a person is doing what they're doing.
Sure.
And as I got acquainted and as I continue to look at and grow into my chart or whatever, it really helped diffuse feeling defined by trauma. And I'm speaking clinically, folks. Yeah, because that's why I love astrology and so many of our ancient thousands of years old studies, sciences, paradigms, ontologies, because they're people-centered. They are inherently empowering. And that's why they're so intentionally discredited. So like when people come through and they're like, oh, I know it's woo-woo. And I'm like, Stop betraying yourself and the rest of us with that. I do not need that disclaimer. And you should, like, you're disrespecting the craft, the science. It's not woo-woo. Don't be ashamed. Don't talk shit on this stuff, please. And get into evolutionary astrology. Like, yeah, it's cool to know your big three, but like, and it's super, super, but there is so much more. And like, especially with like eclipses and aspects and like Pluto,
different trines and subjunctions stuff. And like,
yes, and it's just math, and I'm not very strong in maths, but like geometry, the aspects of all. But what if astrology is not predictive? It's preventative care.
Ooh, I love that. It's just, I'm going to need to process that and journal about that later, because it is preventative care. Like, that makes so much sense. It goes back to like what we were talking about before. Like, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And when you know it, fucking do something.
Right. Because even knowing it, so we don't know what we don't know, but it's not enough to know something. And this is such a Sagittarius thing to say, but you have to experience it. And you have to experience it as fully as you possibly can. Because until it lands in the body, you know what, like it doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to this. We can use the example of when you're a kid or an adolescent, right? And someone older than you gives you like banging life advice, right? And it like cognitively makes sense. Or we're in therapy or something, and you know, an idea is shared that makes all the sense in the world. I'm like, and we get it, but until we do it, smell it, taste it, touch it, feel it, it's just a bit of information. We got to do it.
Absolutely. I'm a Sag rising, so other people experience me as a Sagittarius, and that's and that really is like a lot of the connections that I've made is because of like travel or going out and experimenting or just seeing what something is about. And it's just like lights me up on the inside. And it does, like, it gets encoded into my bones and my memory, just like all the negative shit with like trauma and all this other stuff. That's why it says it lives in the body. So if you can put all of that more into your body, like you can heal some stuff that like you don't have to spend 10 years of therapy in.
Yes, I mean, maybe you still might in this economy with this administration, we might, but that's so true, right? And I think that's a big thing. And like back to like, is there like one thing for people? Like we have to experience the and also, because yes, the world is dangerous, and also I experience safety and nourishment with plants, with animals, with the soil, with the whatever, and with my friend Bree, and when I'm in community, centering people and healing, right? Like. We need the and also. And I think a lot of people get stuck, like they know something isn't working, whether it's, you know, the government or a habit or relationship dynamic, whatever. Like we know, but we're not sure what else is possible. We're not sure what else we can do. This is also a great time to lean into friendships and care providers, but also another reason why we have to sleep and really truly rest so that we can dream and rejuvenate, so that we can imagine and we can travel in our minds. You also like, we don't even have to like, we don't have to physically, literally travel in order to experience other cultures and other ideas and other paradigms and other practices, right? Like that's also the beauty of our technological age, is we are so connected into these other examples of how to human. And I think we all really, really need that, especially as like an American collective.
Absolutely. And
different
like,
experiences.
You would most accurately describe yourself as like a philosopher. So what's your hot take on the human experience?
Oh, humaning is the weirdest thing I've ever done. Ever. Humaning is the weirdest shit I have ever done. Oh my God. I hope I graduate from Earth sometime. I want to go back to the fairy realm.
You're going to put that on the internet, and then it's going to be on iTunes, and we'll all buy it, and that'll be our ringtone.
Yeah, like, oh my God. That would be sick. My hot take. What did I say in our email? Give me a
I don't
prompt.
remember.
What was my answer? I don't remember either. I think
the hot take we've talked about. I think your hot take we've kind of talked about thus far.
Yeah. Okay. I'm openly critical of primarily myself and like things in the world because I'm angry. I am like so full of rage. I bite, I growl, I do. But I think it's important to remember that our rage is sacred. And our grief and all of that stuff really connects us to love. I know that sounds really corny, but we wouldn't fight for things that we didn't care about. We wouldn't be so frustrated and sad and frozen and stagnant or whatever if we didn't love so much, which means we still have an access route to love, to deep love. And we're seeing other people like madly in love with life. I have seen a lot of shit. I have been through a lot of shit. Statistically, with my ACE scores and a bunch of other stuff, like
I should not be where I am right now in life.
Right. Yes. Like this and my life, like maybe is a miracle, but I mean, I think it's just like unrelenting.
It's in your natal chart. There's an answer to that question in your natal chart.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot, and I didn't do it all alone. I mean, a lot of it I did alone, outside of people and like human supports, right? Like this is all available because of my deep, intimate relationship with land and reclaiming my body and a bunch of other things. And I mention that because historically, I have not been a part of a community, nor would I say that I have anything even remotely close to a sense of trust with like life or people. And through being curious, open, willing to be wrong, sick of a lot of shit, and taking a lot of adventures and experiments and seeking out experiences and following, like there's a reason why all the wise people across space and time and geography have very similar wisdoms to share, because it's fucking true, guys. Okay. Like you do have to breathe. You do have to have like healthy coping skills and conflict resolution. Like okay, we have the manuals. But to have those experiences and be in a place where as literally shit is crumbling and collapsing, to still believe in people. I still 1000% believe in people power and what we are all capable of when we are consistent enough, organized enough, connected, strategic, because these motherfuckers are strategic. We need to match that.
It's a game of chess.
Yeah, I'm more of like a Chinese checkers kind of gal, but that's why we all need to be together. Like we do need everyone, because whatever your special weird shit, and it's probably not even something that necessarily that someone like went to school for and trained for and like has mastered. It's probably some neurodivergent thing, or just like this thing about you, this person that is like an integral part of the human puzzle for more collectively decreasing the suck and increasing the rad.
Hell yeah.
And I think that's really cool. Like
Absolutely.
If I believe in us.
And like I say this all the time too, like I would rather believe a certain thing that nobody knows the answer to. I'd rather believe in my own answer if that means it gives me hope and joy when I wake up every morning and a reason to live my life.
Yes. Oh my God, whatever it is, hold on to that. Yes. We need an anchor and we need a buoy, right? Like we need something that grounds us into a sense of security that is real, right? And that's why a sense of self is a great indicator of a sense of security. It's not doubling down on like perceived protection from people and systems that are designed to be violent, right? It's certainly not money, right? Other cultures have like their sense of security, and the sense of wealth is relationships, seeds. Like if you need to reorient to abundant safety and nourishment, plant a garden and let
see what you can do for yourself.
See what the plants, not see what you can do for yourself. See what all life is really about and doing for all of us when we give it our respect, our reverence, our attention, and our responsibility in our hands. I don't want to hear ain't got no green thumbs. You just move shit around into the light and you just move the water, right? Anyone can do this. You can be in deep, intimate relationship with something emerging out of the dark, it knows where to go. Do you know how much information is contained in a seed? You put a seed in the dark and it knows what to do. There is so much intelligence available. And then this thing grows.
Mm-hmm.
And then it makes a beautiful flower that is communicating to everyone around, all the bugs, all the birds, all the things. Deep intimacy. Flowers are sunlight, bro, like plants are. And then you can also like eat them, and then you're eating sunlight, and that's pretty amazing. But then you let that
what
flower,
a cool thing to think about too.
Like seriously, I know. Here I'm just like, what? I can't wait for things to change so that we can talk about like all of the enchantment and not like all the problem. Like, oh guys, this is what we have to do. Like, I just want to play outside with everybody. We're working our way there. And then when you see, like, I don't know if people, you know, like even just like a green bean, right? Like, look how many seeds are in a green bean or a pea pod. I like to grow tobacco because it's an amazing plant. It's like a grandmother plant, I think. There's lots of reasons for it, but I'm telling you, there's like 1 million seeds in one flower. 1 million seeds. Like, and each seed becomes a new plant. If you want to reorient to abundance and wealth, plant a seed.
I love it. You hear that, everybody? Take heed to that advice. Now, normally I would go into a section called concoctions and conundrums. And I normally would let you pick a number between 1 to 13 and like let fate see like what question I'm going to ask you. But I'm throwing that out the window today because I have a poignant question that I want to ask before we are wrapping up. So when you first got onto the podcast, like you had mentioned like, and in my brain, right, you were mentioning, oh, I reincarnated to this time on Earth. I'm here for a reason. Something's in my contract. Now, my question was going to be like, do you believe in reincarnation? Clearly, to some effect, right? Like, yes, there is something that you believe there. So what is your, like, what's your belief system when it comes to like kind of why you're here?
Oh man. I'm here to serve Mother Earth first and foremost. I think that was how they got me to come back, because I've been here many times and it's not how I remember at all. Something like, I remember being in New Mexico and just like, and having this really intense, like somewhat terrifying experience, but being like, what did they do? Like what? Anyway,
is that like a past life memory? You mean?
I don't know if it was mine or if I was tapping into more of like land spirit stuff, but I had like 4 days of really, really intense shit. Maybe mine. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think, you know, my soul's desire. So I also know that I know like my node placement is from the 1st house to the 7th house from Sagittarius, and like a deep sense of self-knowledge and all sorts of stuff with Sag, like big philosophical. Jupiter is also there. So my chart ruler and planet, all whatever.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Jupiter. Yes. Thanks, Jupiter.
Yeah. Like I know I seem like a lot, guys, but like, listen, this is all by design. Like I needed the really, really big, expansive stuff, to keep dealing with y'all shit. No, I'm just kidding.
Hell yeah.
And so growing into right along the path into, you know, Gemini things where, you know, more mastery, more focus, more listening, but more into intimate partnerships and friendships and those kinds of relationships. And that is like so on brand when I look at just my personal healing journey from so much relational trauma of intimate natures, right? And moving. That's why it's like amazing to even want to be around people and be in community, because that wasn't like a clear vision. Most of my life was spent trying to avoid all people at all costs.
Well, when
which is helpful if you want to hear plants talk.
Well, and like,
Not that
you
you
were
can't do
mentioning
that together, but
the duality of life, right? Like when you see one side so much more often, you get that like self-limiting belief about yourself, other
yes,
people in the
because you
world,
think
that this
that's
is where
all
they
that
come
there
from.
is.
Right. And then when you say like, oh, wait, this can't exist without this counterpart, you search for the counterpart in yourself and other people in the world. And then you change your whole belief system about what this
Yes.
life is about.
Yes. And then entire galaxies of possibility open up.
Absolutely. And you'd
It's
rather have
literally
that
a
than the one
gateway.
avenue that you feel like
Yes.
you have in life.
Yes. Find those things, right? Like find that like narrow piece of ground that you can stand on other than like, I know who I am, right?
Hell yeah.
For sure. And then from there you can leap off or you can like dip a toe into another space or just even contemplate. I think even just like the exercise of like, oh, there are other possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
When my clients come to see me, right, and they talk about all their self-limiting beliefs, the doubts that they have in other people, the shit that's going on in the world, and they say, like, I know that this is all that there is and whatever, I say, well, why don't you find the smallest piece of your self-esteem and sense of self? Because that's who came today. That's who got you in your car. That's who made your legs walk into my office. Because if you really, truly believe that, you wouldn't fucking be here. You wouldn't be listening to my shit. You wouldn't be seeing my face every week. Like there is something inside of you that says, I know that if I come, something else will happen in my life that I will get from here and then go out into the world and make the magic happen. If that little part of you didn't live somewhere inside of you, you wouldn't be sitting in front of me.
Yes. And acknowledging that like there are so many cultural things that are intentionally narrowing scope of choice. We know how important agency is.
Mm-hmm.
Agency and like continued re-traumatization can coexist, but it's awfully hard. And the more space agency takes up, the less space that the and like the perpetuation can occur. Which again, like get to know yourself and go find the people.
Right.
Because you're
not going to get there alone.
No, absolutely not. And we can't wait to talk with you. I mean, it must be, I imagine for you too, like it is such a joy just to witness someone being who they are. Even if they're having one of the worst days of their life and they're really fucking in it right now, but like seeing someone showing up is always the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a step and it's like I say first step, it's not like, because then you continue on this linear path until you get to where you're done. It's the first step every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
And it's an intentional choice, right? Because you can choose to live in the same perpetuating stuff, because honestly, that's stability. We're all drawn to stability. So if I hear and think the same negative shit about myself every day, ooh, that's convenient. That I know what to get from here. I know what I'm doing. And it's like, you have to be able to meet uncertainty and shake its hand and say, fucking take me wherever you want me to go, and believe that you'll make it out on the other end of it.
Yes. Because the entire cosmos is co-conspiring for our greatness. Mm-hmm. Our original systems, our original nature, our human nature are as part of the larger ecosystem of all living beings on this incredible freaking planet is towards cooperation and harmony and balance. And yes, like wolves still kill bunnies and shit, but like not because they're informed by violent systems. Mm-hmm. And however we can like help people reorient to that, right? Like we're not inherently fucked up. We are not inherently violent. I refuse to believe, and maybe this is just one of my like Sagittarian coping mechanisms, but I refuse to believe that it is inevitable that hierarchy, violence, like whatever form of systemic violence you want to identify, I don't believe that is inevitable. No, I don't believe that we are just like built to fuck each other over.
Right. Because that would be such a sad existence. So it's like you have to believe on the other side of those things in order to want to wake up in the morning and to want to do what you do and impact people's lives in this planet in the best way that you can. And I hope that everybody who's listening has gotten all of the things that I like knew about you from day one, continue to learn about you, and 3, will continue to learn from you and about you, because not the last time we're going to have one of these conversations, whether it's recorded or not. That's besides the point.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
There's
Yes.
so much that you have to offer. Like, your gifts are amazing wherever they came from. You know, you made, Cosmos made. It's the perfect blend of like absolutely who you are. And I'm so glad that you're willing to like share this space with me today. And it's really like, it's an honor for you to be on this call with me. And I know that everybody's ears that are listening will also feel that way. There's no way that they can't.
Thank you very much. You know, and my work is, you know, some people come for the herbalism, and that's great. And I'm happy to provide that. But, you know, there's a lot of scope to my practice, and it is community building. It is experiential learning. It is clinical consultations. It is public speaking. It is putting in, yeah, we can put in community gardens and help folks with stewardship, but it is cultivating spaces and places for life to grow and for life to be affirmed. And I am pleased to every bit of my body is like, this is so fun. I really appreciate you and how much you bring. I mean, you bring a lot of insight and practice and awareness and just a lot of radiance and joy. It's super fun to talk with you.
I don't know, our energies, I feel like, just like mesh so well. Like sometimes
you put two Sag risings in front of some microphones, and like it's gonna be a really good time where like we don't have to explain anything to each other.
And for anybody out there, like, follow on all the links that are going to be provided. Like, if you can catch Lucia in the car, like, for real, like, catch Lou in the car, and like you're gonna contemplate all of life's existence in like 8 minutes.
Take a drive with me.
Hell yes.
Yo, so all just real quick on that. The truck talks happen because I live on the side of a mountain and I cannot like record and upload from here. So when I'm driving into town, I'm recording love notes for you. And then when I'm in the store grabbing like chicken food or whatever it is that I'm doing, or mailing remedies across the country, because I do that too, I can just have like Instagram open and it uploads with captions, because that's really important. And so folks are like, why are you always doing this in the car? It's logistics. And like, I think driving is like a hypnotic state, right? Like you get to really think. It's also the only time I'm alone ever.
You're like, this is the best time for you guys.
Oh my God. And I'm just like, I think I'm just a straw. It might not even be me talking to you, right? It's like, I'm just like, here you go.
Right. I think like those times, like you're connected to like your source, right? Like you're connected to your source. It flows. Like you can tell that it's been something that is just, I fucking love you.
I forgot.
I absolutely fantastically love you. And I know everybody else will too. Like you have so much to offer. And for all of you who are listening or watching, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell to be alerted of future episodes that happen here every Thursday. All links are going to be posted in the description. And I urge you to go to her website and see the world that she has to offer you, because it's a lot. So until next time, everybody, cheers.